Yesterday, Moscow marked Victory Day not with the thunder of tanks on the cobbles of Red Square, but with videos of them playing on giant screens. It was a hauntingly scaled back ceremony for a nation 4 years into a war that has drained its $3 trillion economy and isolated it from the West. Yet, amid the quiet, Vladimir Putin dropped a bombshell. He believes the war in Ukraine is coming to an end. Supporting this claim, President Trump has announced a 3-day ceasefire that, for the first time in months, actually seems to be holding. But as the smoke clears in the Donbass, it thickens in the Persian Gulf, Washington faces a paradox. It has the hard power to destroy Iran many times over, yet it cannot seem to win. It is a game of chicken where one side is playing for a better deal while the other is playing for its literal survival. I'm Mona Mosalhi, and this is In Focus. Well, for the first time in decades, Russia's Victory Day lacked physical hardware. Putin, blaming globalists for the conflict, expressed a sudden willingness to negotiate security arrangements, specifically naming former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder as his preferred middleman. With 25,000 soldiers reportedly dying every month, the pressure on the Kremlin appears to have reached a boiling point. Right, so we're joined to discuss the topic of the Kremlin and the game theory of Tehran is economist and political expert Mr. Babak Imyan. Mr. Babak, good morning to you, sir. If I may ask you, between Putin's digital parade and Trump's 3-day truce, are we finally seeing the exhausted endgame of 2020s?
Good morning to you. We should celebrate it as a good news, first place. Any form of negotiation towards a peace treaty is a good news. But let's look at the key players here. The key players are Russia, Ukraine, first of all, and then it is the United States, and then the Europeans. As far as the backers of this war, the Ukrainian side, the United States want a peace treaty. The Europeans are not sure if they want to have a peace treaty because they have been saying that President Putin has to be defeated in Ukraine. And that's a big goal. This war has taken over 4.5 years, 500 billion. The war in Ukraine has become a forever war. It is a forever war. It could go for another 20 years. The Europeans have no plan for peace, and they have no plan for war either. I would say the issue here is the European countries. How would they react to this news, and whether they would give any cooperation to a peace treaty here? Previously, they haven't done that.
Do you think really that Europeans would not seek peace if they had a kind of guarantees that they would not be attacked? Because the main thing is that the Europeans have always spoke about being threatened by Russia. What do you think?
Well, I believe we discussed this before, that the Europeans, it's many countries, many different cultures, and they have always been at war with each other. There are lots of feuds between small countries in Europe, and this legacy of these wars still come today. So the only way that the European countries can stay together is to have an outside enemy in order to reduce the friction between themselves and keep themselves together. As we said, there are historical grudges between these countries, and it goes with even local places. Even if you look at the United Kingdom, there are lots of local grudges. These are countries who are 2,000 years old. They have a lot of local grudges. And one of the things we mentioned that thank God for the football, because every week the football teams, the local football teams are playing at each other. Otherwise, the locals would be fighting at each
But
other
many
because of this.
rivals, Mr. Babikian, many rivals became the most allies. And we're speaking about the United States that gather all the nationals or the old European nationals. Everyone has the background of a European uh, entity. Don't you think so? So grudges does not mean that it will continue to be in as they were in history, right? So again, if we are speaking, I mean here, during the World War II, Russia was an ally to the Europeans. In fact, this, what they are here celebrating, the Victory Day, is all about winning in the World War II, which Russia was part of. Now, let me here take it from there. Putin explicitly called for Gerhard Schröder to lead negotiations. Now, is this a move to bypass the unreliable Washington-Berlin axis, or is it a non-starter given Schröder's controversial reputation in the current EU?
First of all, when you mentioned about the grudges, I totally agree with you. But the U.S. is a new continent, and Europe is an old continent, so they have lots of grudges. And the only way they presume, I'm not saying they are correct, is that they could keep together as a continent is by having an outside enemy, and they have manufactured an outside enemy called Russia, and which Russia is not a real threat to Europe. As you said, they were allies in 1940s in the World War II. And I agree with you. In some ways, they are being treated extremely badly by the Europeans. And as you said, the celebration, there were no European countries there. 26 million Russians died in World War II. As far as the Russian look into the negotiation, they trust the Americans. They don't trust the European, except people, old leaders like Schroeder. And they think the present leaders, whether the British Prime Minister, French President Macron, Merz, the German Chancellor, they carry too much baggages, political baggages, being opposed to Russia and so on. So to actually be able to deliver any peace negotiation.
But the choice of Schroeder.
Well, Schroeder was it was an old. He had an old policy, old mentality. He was having a cordial relationship with Russia, and they considered this is very much like what President Trump does. He believes trade is more important than actually having a peace treaty on a piece of paper. And only he thinks, like President Trump, believes that peace will be forever if there is trade between countries, rather than just deterrence or military agreements. And that's what Schroeder was, very much a President Trump mentality, that trade will keep the peace together more than military deterrence or military agreements.
President Trump claimed or said 25,000 young soldiers are dying every month. If those numbers are even remotely accurate, is the end Putin speaks of a strategic choice or a demographic necessity?
Well, first of all, about the figures, whether they are right or wrong, we know people are dying. So whether it's 30,000 or 10,000 or 1,000 or 500, I mean, it's bad that people are dying, people are dying. So we have no dispute. The question is why none of the European countries mention those figures. They talk about humanitarian aids and humanity so much,
No, no.
but they talk about the people, young people who are dying on both sides,
Yes,
and
indeed,
it's
indeed. But the question is this is would ending the war would be a strategic option or a strategic choice in better meaning?
well, again, I would refer to President Trump. There is no way that Russia would give up the lands that already occupies right now. And they have to come to some sort of arrangement with this. It will be very much, I believe, like North Korea and South Korea. It will be something like West Ukraine or South Ukraine and North Ukraine part of that part. So it would be some arrangement like that. Otherwise, I cannot see any other form of peace agreement. And this would, as you say, already it is an forever. It is a forever war. It would just continue forever. And one other thing I really want to stress out: President Trump has already walked away from this conflict. He said they're not going to waste time. Again, they are paying some attention. Steve Witkoff is going to Moscow. They are putting some efforts. If they see they're not getting anywhere with it, President Trump would walk away again from this conflict. So I hope that there will be some result and resolution to a peace treaty.
So, as you're referring to the U.S. President Trump, and his engagement in talks, well, President Trump during his campaign he said that if he wins, he can end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours. Yet he was not able in 1 year to end this war, and now he is, as you said respectively here, saying that he would disengage from such negotiations or from such deal if the same rhetoric remains as is. What leverage are we speaking about of President Trump on this matter?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. That's a very important point. Again, we go back to who are the players here: Russia, Ukraine, European, and U.S. And U.S. has a big leverage, and the style of diplomacy, President Trump diplomacy, is diplomacy backed by military action or tariffs. That has been, and we've seen he's managed to bring about 8 peace treaties last year, and he has neutralized Iran going nuclear. So he has worked very hard towards peace and prosperity in the world. In terms of Ukraine, he said he presumed that would have been the easiest one because he presumed both sides or the Europeans were the most reasonable people. However, he has found, to his surprise, or to everyone's surprise, that the Russians, Ukrainian, and the Europeans are the most unreasonable people right now on earth. They are the most. As you see, there are lots of friction within the European countries themselves. Britain, look at its relationship with European Union. It's 10 years gone since the Brexit, yet there is not a proper, comprehensive trade treaty between Britain and EU. Just a trade treaty, never mind everything else. So there is so much disunity within the European countries. So that's what makes it so difficult. And also, we could see a weaker NATO, and we are seeing a weaker NATO. And the Europeans, somebody like Chancellor Merz, the German Chancellor, is undermining even U.S. military efforts with U.S.-Iran war. He goes as far as saying that the U.S. forces, President Trump has been humiliated in war, in U.S.-Iran war, which has resulted in United States withdrawing their troops, their soldiers from Germany. They are saying if that's the attitude of Germany, if Germany thinks that there is no usefulness to the US military or US administration keep getting everything wrong. So what is the purpose of us staying in NATO or being in Germany? And now he's trying to walk back, Chancellor Merz. So what I'm trying to say, the European leaders are not only weak, they are very incompetent and
Right.
very inexperienced.
So
Right.
President Trump is very strong, and this is very much right indeed. The U.S. is a great power, a great power. Now, this 3-day truce is holding. Why do you think Trump succeeded in stopping fire this weekend when so many previous attempts failed? So, are we speaking here? This is a promise of big extension, or both sides simply out of breath, or President Trump really has the ability and the leverage to stop war when he really wants?
We've seen President Zelensky cannot make decisions on his own. His decisions are made for him either in London, Paris, or Berlin, or the three capitals. And right now, the three capitals, with US reducing their support with NATO, and also the cost of this war is now being borne by these countries. The $100 billion per year, the cost is being borne by these countries, and this could go forever, and the cost of this war could increase dramatically with no result, absolutely zero result. So these countries perhaps they are finding that they are prepared to allow a peace negotiation to start. Whether it would result in a successful peace treaty or not, then again, we have to see how it goes. But again, the only reason I would say that this 3-day truce and a proposal for a peace negotiation has happened because now the European countries are prepared to just go ahead. Again, I would say that so far their demands is total defeat for President Putin. So I'm just trying to imagine how would they then try to comprehend that when the peace negotiation starts.
Mhm. That did not answer if President Trump was able to maintain or to make Ukraine maintain the ceasefire, then why previous times failed. But anyway, this has remains to be seen because this is a big, still, it's a very big file that will continue for some times for now. But Mr. Babikan, if the war in Europe is winding down through exhaustion, the war with Iran is stuck in a loop of identity crisis. Let's look at why the most powerful country on earth is currently at a stalemate with Tehran. Now, a recent Washington Post analysis argues that the US is failing in Iran because it can't decide what it wants. Does it want to change Iran's policies, or does it want to change Iran's regime? This creates a game of chicken where the stakes for Tehran are existential, while for Washington they are merely political. Right, back to you, to Mr. Emimian. And you know, game theory, if the Iranian leaders feel that losing means they will die, but Trump only feels like he might lose an election, doesn't the side that is more desperate always win?
I don't think so. The way I see that President Trump is a man who is result driven, and he wants to finish his project. And the way he has approached this project is the way he would approach a development project. How much it costs, who's carrying it out, what is the timeline, and everything is on course. First, he demolished the Iranian leadership. Then the second stage was to disarm Iran. Iran has almost no military. The Iran regime has no military
I'm
except
sorry,
few drones.
Mr. Babak, You're speaking about reports. The news tells something else. If Mr. over the U.S. was able to demolish the Iranian capabilities, military capabilities, then what is Iran doing here? Why is Iran threatening any of the countries? So did the U.S. really demolish Iran's capabilities?
Well, but Iran could always and has always has these are propagandas. They have always made threats.
No,
You
these are real threats. We have seen Iran attacking the Gulf. We have seen Iraq attacking military U.S. bases in the area. We have seen Iran attacking Israel. So there are Iranian capabilities. So did the U.S. or was the U.S. able really to demolish or end the Iranian capabilities, or they did not? That's a big
well,
question mark.
sure. Let's just look at what has happened. Uh, U.S. has destroyed like 13,000 targets, destroyed 13,000 targets in Iran. There is no navy, there is no aviation, there is no internet, there is no banking, there is no economy, there is no money, there is no export, there is no import, there is nothing in Iran.
This is
It's a
the
Stone
American
Age country.
perspective. But there is Iranian resilience. I mean, I'm not speaking, I'm not defending the Iranian side, but I'm speaking about facts on the ground. And those facts are really threatening the region. So we're speaking here about important matters. We don't need, we need to hear the truth. And the truth is that Iran is still resilient, that Iran is still negotiating with the United States, is that Iran is putting its own terms. So how do you view matters here?
Well, when you say Iran is damaging or causing damage or retaliating, it's a couple of drones, couple of missiles with small amount of damage. And all these damages that they are causing, for example, to UAE is recoverable. Right now, something like $46 billion of recovery money has gone into UAE, while in Iran has no ability to recover. It has no money, no access to technology, it has no friends. So I'm saying one side is totally destroyed. The other side is bearing some damages, but all these damages are recoverable. So the issue is not a major crisis. It's a
But
both.
Iran is asking also for recovering its, and is asking for the United States to compensate what the damage it did. And
Well,
that's the irony in the
sure,
matter.
sure, sure. I mean, if we go back to Qasem Soleimani, General Soleimani, when President Trump assassinated Qasem Soleimani, they said, oh, they're going to set the region to fire and hell. Nothing happened. They killed the supreme leader, and he hasn't been buried after 2 months yet. They can't even bury him after 2 months. There's no burial for him after 2 months. Uh, so this idea of we're talking about a regime that it can actually cause damage to the regime is not there. It's a very weak regime. It lives on propaganda, and and unfortunately the regime believes its own propaganda that it could challenge other countries. Right now, this regime is facing up to 15 million people being unemployed in about a month's time.
If
And
Iran was promoting propaganda and these are not the realities on the ground, then why the United States is holding negotiations with Iran? Okay, let me take you to another part. President Reagan, dealt with the mullahs secretly while denouncing them. So, is Trump simply falling into the same track, realizing that national interests like nuclear control require dealing with whoever?
well, thank you for bringing that issue in 1985 when President Reagan was secretly dealing with that. And I have to say, one of the brightest people in Reagan administration was his defense secretary, back then he was called defense secretary, which is now war secretary, Caspar Weinberger. And he has always said there are no moderates in Iran. The moderates in Iran are in cemetery. Everyone who says we are moderate in Iran is that they're pretending to be moderate. They're all hardliners. And lessons have been learned. And President Trump knows anyone on the Iranian side who says we are the moderate, deal with us, he considers them as hardliners in a sheep clothing, as moderates. So even if there is an agreement, President Trump would not keep up his side of the agreement, and the Iranians know this. He's not going to release any money to them. He's not going to make the mistake that President Obama made, released money without verification. The Iran deal 2015 was a very bad deal. President Obama gave money to the Iranians without verification. And the inspection of the JCPOA.
And doesn't that raises big question marks also? That I mean, here the United States has one day strengthened Iran, and then it is now damaging all its strength. Exactly as one day Trump threatens to destroy Iranian civilization, the next day he speaks of a bright future. Doesn't all that raise big question marks about exactly what the United States want?
Well, again, I go back. President Trump is somebody who completes projects. He would not be here if he was not able to complete projects. Whether in business, in politics, he completes projects. He wins. Now, his style of communication sometimes is to confuse the other side. And it is this, in this case, has totally confused the Iranian side. He's speaking the same language that the Iranian side talk. They say one thing, then they change their mind. He's doing the same thing here. Actually, I would say President Trump is the best person here, the best president in the last 47 years, who understand the mentalities of these mullahs, and he knows how to speak to them.
Yes.
And he sometimes even used foul language towards them. And by the way, that destruction of civilization, it did not refer to ancient destruction. It referred to the revolutionary culture, the 47 years, this Islamic revolutionary culture. That's what he meant, President Trump. And
what do you think the American administration think of an end game or an exit of this war would be?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. Let's keep it simple. Total destruction of this regime and collapse of this regime. That's what they want. That's it. Nothing else. Nothing.
But it doesn't seem negotiations are going in that direction. Mr. Babak, we're speaking about points that were put by the Iranian side, points that were put by the US sides, and they are still discussing matters, and there are still concessions from both sides. So what do you think from the American point of view is an exit plan from this war? What can be satisfying to the US side?
The exit plan is when this regime is totally destroyed and the US has a regime in Iran that is pro-West and also a regime that's not going to threaten the countries in the region. That's the end game.
But Mr. Trump himself, President Trump himself said that a change of a regime is not that important.
President Trump says these things to confuse the other side. He will say that but everything else he's done is to try to destroy this regime. And anyway, if there is an agreement, he doesn't trust anyone in the regime. So again, I would mention that he's not going to keep up his side of it. He will never pay any money to this regime.
It's not
and the regime knows that.
Do you think there will be an end result or a positive result in this upcoming negotiation?
I think before even there is any result to this negotiation, this regime will not be the way it is in 20 to 30 days' time. As soon as that.
According to our, this is from your own perspective, right?
Yes.
Right. Mr. Babaki Memian, we thank you so much for navigating the complex math of modern war and peace. A parade without tanks and a war without an exit, whether it's digital victory in Moscow or the game of chicken in the Gulf, the world is waiting for someone to blink. The paradox of 2026 is that the most powerful nations are discovering that hard power has a ceiling. You can bomb a city and you can blockade a port, but you cannot compel a heart or buy a lasting peace with one-page deal. If you don't know who you are talking to or what you really want from them, it remains to be seen. This has been In Focus. Many thanks for watching.